Do you feel like you never prep enough for your sessions and you're just hoping it all holds together on the night? If your games usually run for 2 or 3 hours and you find yourself thinking, I don't have time to prep a whole plot for this video's for you. I'm Simon and I've been running tabletop RPGs for a few decades across all sorts of systems. These days I prep very little, and in this video I'm going to give you 5 tips for running low prep sessions that still feel satisfying, so your players leave feeling like they achieved something, even if you only had a few minutes to get ready. Tip 1 is to build each session around one big problem. For a 2 or 3 hour game, you do not need a complicated plot. You need one situation that demands attention right now. In my current campaign, one of the characters has been a werewolf for a while. The party used to deal with it by confining him during the full moon. They'd tie him up to a tree or put him in a jail cell, just find ways to stop him wreaking havoc when he transformed. Recently, though, he was cursed to stay in werewolf form all the time, and that alone is enough to fill a session. The problem is simple to state. Your friend is stuck as a werewolf. What are you going to do about it? The game time is them arguing, planning, trying things, failing at some of them, maybe making it worse before they make it better. You can do the same with lots of situations. Somebody has gone missing, the caravan can't move because something's blocking the road, a powerful NPC changes their mind about a deal. One clear problem can easily absorb a whole evening. Before the session, all you really need to know is what that big problem is. Everything else grows out of how the group tries to solve it. Tip 2 is to let the consequences of previous sessions become your prep for the next one. My werewolf example is exactly that. The party's choice to confine him during full moons led to him being cursed to stay in that form. That curse then became the focus of an entire session. Between sessions, my prep is usually just looking at what they did the last time and asking, what's the most interesting consequence that would hit them next? If they made a deal, who is unhappy about it? If they killed someone, who cared about that person? If they ignored a warning, what happens because of that? The consequences become your next big problems. You're not inventing a brand new plot every week, you're following the knock-on effects of what they already chose to do. It keeps the campaign feeling connected and saves you from writing long story arcs in advance. Tip 3 is to have a dungeon or adventure site ready to go when the big problem is resolved. My games often alternate between a focused problem session and a more traditional dungeon crawler exploration session. Once the party have dealt with the werewolf situation, for example, they go back to the journey they were already on. And at that point I might say, on the road south you find an old ruin, and I pull out a dungeon map I already have handy. You do not need to prep a brand new custom location every week, just keep 1 or 2 generic dungeon sites on standby. A ruined temple, a cave system, an abandoned tower. Give it a simple reason to exist in the world and a problem at its heart. When the party move on from the current crisis faster than you expected, or when you know they are travelling, you can drop that dungeon on their route. You have something concrete for them to explore without doing much new prep. Tip 4 is to aim for one clear achievement in every session. This is important. You want your players to feel like they actually accomplished something by the end of the night. In a problem-focused session, that is usually straightforward. They break the curse, or they find a temporary solution, or they make a hard decision and live with it. In a dungeon or exploration session, a lot of the time is spent poking around, mapping, testing doors, and talking. You generally do not want the whole session to be nothing but combat, but you also don't want the evening to end in a way that feels like they just wandered about. So give them one big thing to overcome or understand. It might be a challenging combat, a tricky puzzle, a dangerous negotiation, or a new piece of information that changes how they see the situation. If they defeat a tough enemy, crack a puzzle they were stuck on, or uncover some new insight about the dungeon or the wider plot, they will usually walk away feeling like the session mattered. You don't need 6 fights and 3 subplots. You need one moment where they can look back and say, "We did that." Tip 5 is to treat your notes that you make after the session as your main prep. Because I run very low prep, I don't spend much time writing things before we play. Instead, after a session, I jot down a few key points. I write what the big problem was and how they dealt with it, any new consequences that might come out of their choices, and where they physically ended the session. Were they still in town dealing with the fallout, in the middle of a dungeon, or camped on the road, or knocking on someone's front door? Once I've written that down, the shape of the next session is basically decided for me. If they're halfway through a dungeon, the next session is dungeon crawl. If they just created a new problem or stirred up some trouble in town, the next session is probably going to be about dealing with that. If they just finished a problem and set off travelling, that's when the next site or dungeon I have ready can probably appear on the road. I'm not sitting there trying to pick a random mode for the next game. I just follow on from whatever they were doing and wherever they left things. The only prep is making sure I remember what happened and letting their actions point naturally to what comes next. So those are my 5 tips for running low prep sessions. Build each session around one big problem, let the consequences of the last game do most of your prep, keep a dungeon or adventure site in your back pocket for when they hit the road, and make sure there's at least one clear achievement in every session, and then use your notes after the game so that you remember what they did and where they left things. The shape of the next session just comes naturally from that. If you try this, you'll probably find that you're prepping less, but your table still feels like it's moving forward. Your players finish each session having solved a problem, beaten a challenge, or learned something important, and that matters more than how many pages of notes you wrote. If this was helpful, let me know in the comments how much you prep, and whether you could see yourself trying a lighter approach. And if you want more GM and tabletop videos like this, hit the subscribe button and don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching and good luck with your sessions.